The thing about betrayal is that it starts small, a glance held too long, a phone flipped face down, a sudden interest in yoga retreats and influencer collaborations that somehow require weekend trips to places I've never heard of. My name is Wes Farrow, and I'm a project manager for the city's infrastructure department. I spend my days making sure bridges don't collapse and water flows where it should. I'm good at spotting structural weaknesses before they become catastrophic failures. Turns out, that skill translates to marriage about as well as you'd expect. Mira Farrow, my wife of 15 years, had been pulling away for months. At first, I chalked it up to her growing yoga business. She'd built quite the following on social media, teaching classes at her studio downtown and posting those inspirational quotes that make people feel better about their lives for exactly 30 seconds. "I'm living my best life," she'd caption photos of herself in impossible poses, usually wearing outfits that cost more than my monthly car payment. The distance started subtly. She'd come home from the studio later than usual, claiming she was networking with other wellness entrepreneurs. She'd disappear into our bedroom with her phone, emerging an hour later with that particular glow that comes from validation, the kind you get from likes, comments, and apparently direct messages from admirers. "How was class today?" I'd ask over dinner. "Amazing. Really connecting with my community," she'd reply, not looking up from her phone. Our 13-year-old son Milo noticed it too. Kids have radar for tension that would make air traffic controllers jealous. "Mom's always on her phone now," he mentioned one evening while we were loading the dishwasher together. "She's building her business," I said, which was what I kept telling myself. "Uncle Jace is around a lot more too," Milo added, and something cold settled in my stomach. Jace Arnell had been my best friend for 10 years. We met at a neighborhood barbecue when I was still figuring out how to be a suburban dad, and he was the guy who made everyone laugh. He worked in public relations for a downtown firm, had the kind of easy charm that made strangers feel like old friends, and could talk his way out of parking tickets. His wife Elara was a corporate lawyer, sharp, successful, and the kind of person who could dissect a contract while making dinner and helping with homework. They seemed to have it figured out in a way that made the rest of us feel like we were still practicing. Jace had always been around. Backyard barbecues, birthday parties, the occasional beer after work when one of us needed to complain about our wives or jobs, normal friend stuff. But Milo was right. Lately, he'd been showing up more often, usually when I was at work. "Just checking on you guys," he'd say when I'd find him in our kitchen, making coffee like he owned the place. "That's thoughtful," I'd reply, though something about it felt off. The final straw came on a Tuesday. I was supposed to be at a city planning meeting, but it got canceled last minute. Instead of calling ahead, I decided to surprise Mira with lunch from her favorite place downtown. I pulled into our driveway and saw Jace's car parked there. Nothing unusual, except it was 1:30 in the afternoon on a Tuesday, and he was supposed to be at work. More importantly, all the blinds in our house were drawn. I sat in my car for a full 5 minutes, staring at those closed blinds. A dozen innocent explanations ran through my head. Maybe he was helping her move furniture. Maybe he was having marriage problems and needed someone to talk to. Maybe Elara was working late again, and he was lonely. Maybe I was an idiot. I drove back to work without going inside. But that night, after Mira had gone to bed early with a headache and Milo was absorbed in his video games, I ordered a small security camera online. Nothing fancy, just something to monitor our front entry and living room. For packages, obviously. We'd had some deliveries go missing lately. The camera arrived 2 days later. I installed it while Mira was at the studio, positioning it to capture anyone coming through the front door and most of the living room. I synced it to my phone and tested it. Crystal clear video, automatic cloud backup, motion alerts sent directly to my device. "What's that for?" Milo asked, noticing the small black device mounted near our front window. "Security," I said. "Just keeping an eye on things." He nodded and went back to his homework. Kids accept technology as naturally as breathing. The first few days of footage were exactly what you'd expect. Mira leaving for the studio, the mail carrier, a delivery driver leaving a package, me coming home from work looking tired and slightly defeated, which was depressing but not surprising. Then came Friday afternoon. I was in a budget meeting when my phone buzzed with a motion alert. I glanced at the notification. Front door activity detected. Probably another package. I opened the app and watched Jace walk through our front door like he lived there. No knocking, no waiting. He had a key. My wife had given my best friend a key to our house. I watched him disappear from the camera's view, presumably heading toward the kitchen or living room. A few minutes later, Mira appeared on screen. She'd obviously just gotten home, still in her yoga clothes, hair in that messy bun she wore after teaching classes. But here's the thing that made my stomach drop. She walked straight to our security system panel and disabled the motion sensors. She knew exactly which buttons to press, like she'd done it before. They both knew about the regular security system. They were being careful about that. They just didn't know about my new camera. For the next hour, I sat through budget discussions about road repairs and water main replacements while periodically checking my phone. Jace and Mira stayed out of the camera's direct view, but I could see them moving around in the background, comfortable, familiar, at home. When Jace finally left, again without any ceremony, just walking out like it was routine, Mira reactivated the security system. I drove home that night with my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles went white. Mira was in the kitchen making dinner when I walked in, humming along to music playing from her phone. "How was your day?" she asked, not looking up from the stove. "Productive," I said. "Yours?" "Great. Had a really good class this afternoon. The energy was amazing." I wanted to ask her about Jace. I wanted to demand an explanation for the key, for the disabled security system, for the casual way he'd walked through our door. Instead, I kissed her cheek and went upstairs to change clothes. That weekend, I reviewed every piece of footage from the past week. The pattern was clear. Jace would arrive within an hour of Mira getting home from her afternoon classes. Always on days when I was scheduled to be at work. Always when Milo was at school. Always with that same comfortable familiarity. I cross-referenced the timestamps with Jace's social media posts. On Tuesday, while he was in my living room, he'd posted a photo from his office with the caption, "Grinding through another afternoon." On Thursday, he'd shared a LinkedIn article about work-life balance while sitting on my couch. The lies had layers. Sunday night, I was putting Milo to bed when he mentioned that Uncle Jace had been teaching him card tricks. "When?" I asked. "Last week sometime. He said it was our secret because you might be jealous that he's better at poker than you." I tucked my son in and went downstairs. Mira was on the couch, scrolling through her phone with that same absorbed expression she'd been wearing for months. "Jace taught Milo some card tricks," I said. She looked up. "Oh, that's sweet. When?" That's what I was wondering. For just a moment, something flickered across her face. Calculation. Then she smiled. "He stopped by the other day while you were at work. Milo was homesick, remember? Jace kept him company while I ran to the pharmacy." Milo hadn't been homesick any day last week. He'd had perfect attendance. "Right," I said. That was thoughtful of him. That night, I lay awake listening to Mira breathe beside me and thinking about structural failures. In my job, we call it progressive collapse, when one failure leads to another and another until the whole system comes down. The scary thing is that it usually starts small, a loose bolt, a cracked beam, something that seems manageable until it isn't. My marriage was in progressive collapse, and I'd been ignoring the warning signs. Monday morning, I called in sick to work. Mira left for her studio at her usual time, kissing me goodbye and telling me to rest up. Milo caught his bus to school. I waited 30 minutes, then drove to an electronics store across town. I bought a second camera, a smaller one, designed to look like a phone charger. I installed it in our bedroom, positioned to capture anyone entering or using the space. Then, I upgraded the cloud storage on both cameras and enabled continuous recording. If my marriage was collapsing, I was going to document every step of the failure. Tuesday afternoon, my phone buzzed with another motion alert. This time, I was ready. Jace entered at 2:15 p.m. using his key like he'd been doing it for years. Mira arrived 20 minutes later and again went straight to the security panel. But this time, instead of just disabling the motion sensors, I watched her check something on her phone first. She was looking at her calendar, making sure I was supposed to be at work. They weren't just having an affair. They were conducting surveillance on my schedule. I screenshotted everything, the timestamps, the security system log showing when it was disabled and reactivated, Jace's social media posts claiming to be elsewhere. I created a folder on my laptop labeled Infrastructure Reports and saved everything there. For the next 2 weeks, I collected evidence with the same methodical approach I used for city projects. Every interaction was documented. Every lie was cataloged. Every inconsistency was noted. The footage from the bedroom camera was limited. They were smart enough to stay mostly in areas where they thought they were safe from surveillance. But I caught enough. Intimate conversations, Jace wearing one of my shirts, Mira laughing at something on his phone while lying in the bed I'd been sleeping in for 15 years. The worst part wasn't the betrayal itself. It was how comfortable they were. How routine it had become. This wasn't a moment of weakness or a recent mistake. This was a relationship. I started paying attention to other things, too. Mira's friends, Lacey and Tara, would exchange looks when Jace's name came up in conversation. Our neighbor, Mrs. Harper, had mentioned seeing him around during odd hours, but I'd brushed it off. "He's been helping with some house projects," I'd said. "How nice," she'd replied, but her tone suggested she knew more than she was saying. The final piece of evidence came on a Thursday. I was reviewing footage when I heard Mira and Jace talking in the living room, just within range of the camera's audio. "Wes has been acting strange lately," Mira said. "Strange how?" "Asking questions, paying attention to things he usually ignores." "You think he knows?" "I don't know. Maybe we should be more careful. Or maybe it's time to stop sneaking around." There was a pause. Then Mira's voice, quieter. "I'm not ready for that conversation yet." "When will you be?" "Soon. I just need to figure out the logistics. Milo, the house, the business. Elara's been working late a lot. I don't think she suspects anything, but she's not exactly paying attention either. That's good for us. For now." I saved that audio file with a timestamp and added it to my folder. Then I sat in my car in the work parking lot and made a decision. I wasn't going to confront them. I wasn't going to demand explanations or try to save my marriage. I wasn't going to give them a chance to gaslight me or make excuses or turn this around on my supposed paranoia. I was going to end it cleanly, with documentation, and I was going to make sure the one person who deserved the truth got it. Friday afternoon, I left work early and drove to the law offices of Morrison and Associates. I'd looked them up online. They specialized in family law, had good reviews, and were known for being thorough. "I need to file for divorce," I told the receptionist. An hour later, I was sitting across from David Morrison, a man in his 50s who looked like he'd seen every possible variation of marital failure. "What are the grounds?" he asked. I handed him a tablet with the video files queued up. "Adultery, with documentation." He watched a few clips, his expression remaining professionally neutral. "This is very thorough. How long has this been going on?" "Based on the evidence, at least 3 months. Probably longer." "Children?" "1, 13 years old." "Assets?" "House, retirement accounts, her business. Nothing too complicated." "Do you want to pursue counseling first?" "Sometimes." "No." I cut him off. "I want this done as quickly and quietly as possible." He nodded. "I'll need to review everything in detail, but based on what I'm seeing, We can file immediately. Given the evidence, we should be able to expedite the process. Good. There's one more thing, he said. The other party, the man in the videos, is he married? Yes. Does his wife know? Not yet. Morrison leaned back in his chair. That's not my area, but if I were you, I'd consider whether she deserves to know. Legally, it doesn't affect your case, but ethically, I'm planning on it. I signed papers for the next hour. Petition for dissolution of marriage, financial disclosures, custody preferences. It was remarkably straightforward. 15 years of marriage reduced to checkboxes and signatures. We'll serve the papers Monday morning, Morrison said as I prepared to leave. Do you want to give her a heads up? No, let it be a surprise. That evening, I acted normal. I helped Milo with his homework. I made small talk with Mira about her day. I watched Netflix and pretended everything was fine. But inside, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Clarity. Saturday morning, after Mira left for a wellness retreat planning session that I now knew was probably a hotel room with Jace, I called Elara. Hey, Wes, she answered. What's up? I need to talk to you about something. In person. It's important. There was a pause. Is everything okay? No, but it will be. Can I come over? Jace is out running errands, but sure. I'll make coffee. I drove to their house, a sleek, modern place that reflected Elara's taste for clean lines and functionality. She met me at the door wearing weekend clothes, her hair pulled back, looking more relaxed than I'd seen her in months. You look terrible, she said as she let me in. I feel terrible, but that's about to change. I followed her to the kitchen, where she poured coffee into 2 mugs. What's going on? I pulled out my tablet and set it on her counter. I need to show you something. It's going to be difficult to watch. Elara looked at the screen, then at me. Wes, you're scaring me. Jace has been having an affair with Mira. I have video evidence. For a moment, she didn't react. Then she sat down heavily on one of the kitchen stools. Show me. I played the footage chronologically. Jace entering my house with his key, Mira disabling the security system, audio of their conversations, timestamps cross-referenced with his social media lies. Elara watched everything without speaking. Her face remained calm, but I could see her lawyer brain processing the information, categorizing evidence, building a case. When the videos finished, she was quiet for a long time. How long have you known? She finally asked. 2 weeks. I've been documenting everything. And you came to me first. You deserve to know. She nodded slowly. I've suspected something for a while. The late meetings, the weekend work trips, the way he's been distant. But I kept telling myself I was being paranoid. You weren't paranoid. No, I wasn't. She looked at the tablet again. Can you send me copies of everything? Already done. Check your email. Elara pulled out her phone and scrolled through the files I'd sent. This is comprehensive. Timestamps, cross-references, audio, video. You've built a complete case. I'm good at documentation. You're good at more than that. She looked up at me. What's your plan? I filed for divorce yesterday. Mira gets served on Monday. And Jace? That's up to you. Elara stood up and walked to the window overlooking their backyard. I've been working 60-hour weeks for the past 6 months, trying to make partner at my firm. I thought he was being supportive, understanding about my schedule. Turns out he was just taking advantage of it. I'm sorry. Don't be. I'm angry, but I'm not surprised. Jace has always been entitled. He's always believed rules don't apply to him. She turned back to me. The question is, what do we do about it? We? You think I'm going to let this slide? You think I'm going to quietly file papers and pretend this didn't happen? Elara's voice was calm, but there was steel underneath. They humiliated both of us. They made us look like fools in front of our friends, our neighbors, our son. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that they chose to conduct their affair in public, in your house, with your security system, around your child. They made it public business. Maybe it's time the public knew about it. I looked at Elara, really looked at her, and realized I'd underestimated her. Behind the professional composure and the long work hours was someone who didn't just practice law. She understood justice. What did you have in mind? She smiled for the first time since I'd arrived. Let me make some calls. I think it's time Jace's colleagues learned about his extracurricular activities. And I think Mira's yoga students might be interested to know what kind of wellness their teacher has been practicing. That could get messy. Wes, they made it messy when they decided to use your house as their personal hotel. We're just going to help them deal with the consequences. I finished my coffee and stood up to leave. Mira gets served Monday morning. After that, it's going to move fast. Good. Jace gets served Monday afternoon. I've already called my attorney. At the door, Elara stopped me. Thank you for coming to me first. You could have just handled your own situation and left me in the dark. You're not the enemy here. No, I'm not. But they're about to find out what happens when you make enemies of the wrong people. I drove home feeling something I hadn't experienced in months. I wasn't alone in this anymore. Monday morning arrived with the kind of crisp October air that makes everything feel possible. I dropped Milo off at school, went to work, and waited. The process server found Mira at her yoga studio during the lunch break between her morning and afternoon classes. According to Morrison, she'd been teaching a session on finding inner peace when she was handed the divorce papers. The irony was not lost on me. My phone rang at 2:47 p.m. What the hell is this? Mira's voice was shaking. Whether from anger or shock, I couldn't tell. Divorce papers, I said calmly. I thought that was obvious. You can't be serious. Over what? Some misunderstanding. There's no misunderstanding, Mira. I have video footage of Jace using his key to enter our house while I'm at work. I have audio of you two planning your schedules around mine. I have timestamps showing when you disable our security system before he arrives. Silence. You've been spying on me. I've been documenting adultery in my own home. This is insane. You're destroying our family over... I'm not destroying anything. You already did that. Wes, please. We need to talk about this, face to face. We'll talk through our lawyers. I hung up. My phone immediately started buzzing with texts, first from Mira, then from Jace. Mira. This is crazy. You're not thinking clearly. Jace. Call me. We need to discuss this like adults. Mira. Think about Milo. Think about what this will do to him. Jace. You're overreacting. Don't destroy everything over a misunderstanding. I deleted every message without responding. At 3:15, Elara texted me. Jace has been served. He's at home now, probably calling you. Don't answer. At 4:30, my neighbor, Mrs. Harper, knocked on my door. I heard there was some excitement at Mira's studio today, she said, not even pretending to be subtle. People talk, I replied. They certainly do, and they're saying some very interesting things. I looked at her more carefully. Mrs. Harper was in her 70s, retired, and had lived on our street longer than anyone. She knew everything that happened in the neighborhood, and more importantly, she had opinions about all of it. Such as how certain people have been coming and going from certain houses at certain times when certain husbands are at work. Interesting? Very interesting, especially when those certain people are supposed to be somewhere else entirely. I realized that Mrs. Harper had been conducting her own surveillance operation from her front window. The neighborhood watch program had been watching more than just suspicious strangers. I suppose people will draw their own conclusions, I said. Oh, they already have. The question is what they're going to do about it. That evening, I picked up Milo from soccer practice. He was quiet during the drive home, which usually meant he was processing something. Mom seemed upset when I called her after school, he finally said. She's dealing with some adult stuff. Are you guys getting divorced? I glanced at him in the rearview mirror. 13 years old, but smart enough to read the situation. Yes. Because of Uncle Jace? I pulled into our driveway and turned around to face him. What makes you ask that? I'm not stupid, Dad. I know he's been coming over when you're not here. I know Mom acts different around him, and I know you've been watching everything. How do you know that? I saw the cameras, and I heard you on the phone with someone about lawyers. I sat there for a moment, trying to figure out how much truth a 13-year-old could handle. Your mom made some choices that hurt our marriage. I'm not going to pretend everything is fine when it's not. Is Uncle Jace getting divorced too? That's between him and Elara. Milo nodded. Good. I never liked him anyway. Why not? He always acted like he was better than everyone else, and he was mean to Elara when he thought no one was listening. Kids notice everything. Tuesday morning, I got a call from Morrison. Mira's attorney wants to schedule a mediation session. She's claiming the evidence was obtained illegally. It's my house. I can put cameras anywhere I want. That's what I told them. They're also claiming alienation of affection and emotional distress. From whom? From you. They're saying your surveillance caused psychological trauma. I laughed. They're going to claim that getting caught cheating traumatized them. Apparently. It won't work, but they're trying everything. What about custody? Given the evidence and the fact that the affair was conducted in the family home around the minor child, you're in a strong position. Mira's not going to get primary custody. Good. Wednesday evening, Elara called. How are you holding up? She asked. Better than expected. You? Angry, but productively angry. I've been making some calls. Oh? It turns out Jace's PR firm has a very strict morality clause in their contracts. Something about maintaining the company's reputation and avoiding scandals that could reflect poorly on their clients. Interesting. Very interesting. Especially since one of their biggest clients is a family-oriented restaurant chain that's very particular about their brand image. And you shared this information with them? I shared the video evidence of Jace lying about his whereabouts while conducting an extramarital affair. I thought they should know what kind of person was representing their family-friendly brand. That seems fair. I thought so. Jace got called into a meeting with HR this morning. How do you know? Because he called me, screaming about how I was ruining his career over a personal matter. I reminded him that when you make your personal matters public by conducting them in someone else's house, they stop being personal. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Thursday afternoon, things escalated. I was at work when I got a text from an unknown number. Back off or you'll regret it. I forwarded it to Morrison immediately. This looks like harassment, he said when he called me back. Do you have any idea who sent it? I can guess. Don't guess. Document. If you get any more messages like this, contact the police immediately. I didn't have to wait long. Friday morning, I got another message. You're destroying innocent people's lives. Stop this now. This time, I called the police. Officer Martinez came to my house and took a statement. Threatening messages in the context of a divorce proceeding are taken seriously, she said. Do you feel physically threatened? Not yet. But I want it on record. Smart. Keep documenting everything. That afternoon, I got a call from Milo's school. Mr. Farrow, this is Principal Williams. We had an incident today involving Milo and another student. My stomach dropped. What kind of incident? Apparently, some of the other kids were saying things about your family situation. Milo got into a verbal altercation defending himself. Is he in trouble? No. Actually, The other students' parents have been spreading rumors around the school community, and we've had to address that separately. Milo handled himself appropriately, but I wanted you to know what's happening. What kind of rumors? I'd rather not repeat them, but suffice it to say that some adults have been sharing inappropriate information about your personal situation with their children. I realized the story was spreading beyond our immediate neighborhood. In a community like ours, where everyone knew everyone else's business, a scandal like this was prime gossip material. How is Milo handling it? Better than most kids would. He's mature for his age, but you might want to talk to him about it. When I picked up Milo that afternoon, he was quiet again. Rough day? I asked. Some kids were saying stuff about Mom and Uncle Jace. What kind of stuff? That they were, together, and that everyone knew except you. I felt anger rise in my chest, but I kept my voice calm. What did you tell them? That Mom made a mistake and you were handling it like an adult, and that Uncle Jace was a jerk who was getting what he deserved. That sounds about right. Dad? Yeah? I'm glad you're not pretending everything is okay. I hate it when adults lie to kids about important stuff. That evening, I got a call from Elara. Jace lost his job today, she said without preamble. Seriously? Seriously. Turns out that when you're in public relations, having evidence of your lies circulating around the community is bad for business. How's he taking it? About as well as you'd expect. He's been calling me all day, alternating between begging for forgiveness and blaming me for ruining his life. And you're saying? I'm saying he ruined his own life when he decided to have an affair with his best friend's wife. I just made sure the consequences caught up with him. What's next? For him? I have no idea. For us? I think it's time we stopped playing defense and started playing offense. Meaning? Meaning they've been controlling this narrative for months. They've been sneaking around, lying to everyone, making us look like fools. Maybe it's time everyone knew exactly what kind of people they are. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that Mira has a big influencer event next weekend. Something about wellness and authentic living. It would be a shame if her audience learned about how authentic she's really been. I thought about it. Mira's quarterly wellness workshops were a big deal. She'd rent a hotel conference room and invite all her followers for a day of yoga, meditation, and inspirational speaking. It was part of her brand, her image as someone who had life figured out. That could get ugly, I said. It's already ugly. We're just going to make sure it's ugly in public instead of hidden. What did you have in mind? Leave that to me. Just make sure you're available Saturday afternoon. And bring a camera. As I hung up the phone, I realized that what had started as evidence gathering was about to become something much more public, and much more final. Saturday morning arrived gray and drizzly, the kind of weather that makes everything feel ominous. Mira had left early for her wellness event, kissing Milo goodbye and telling him she'd be back that evening. Break a leg, I'd said, and she'd given me a strange look. Are you being sarcastic? Would I do that? She'd left without answering. Milo was spending the day with my brother Tom, which meant I was free to attend Mira's event as Elara had suggested. I still wasn't entirely sure what she had planned, but I trusted her judgment. The Riverside Hotel was downtown, a mid-tier place that tried to be upscale, but mostly succeeded at being expensive. Mira had rented their largest conference room for what she was calling authentic living, finding your true self. The irony was so thick you could cut it with a knife. I arrived at 2 p.m., paid the $40 admission fee, and took a seat in the back row. The room was about half full, maybe 60 people, mostly women in their 30s and 40s wearing the kind of athletic wear that costs more than most people's rent. Mira was on stage, radiant in white yoga pants and a flowing top, talking about the importance of honesty in relationships. When we live authentically, she was saying, we attract authentic people into our lives. We create space for genuine connection and real intimacy. Someone in the audience actually applauded. I checked my phone. Elara had texted, "In position, wait for my signal." At 2:30, during Mira's segment on releasing toxic relationships, Elara walked into the room. She looked like she'd stepped out of a courtroom, sharp black suit, hair pulled back, carrying a leather portfolio. Every inch the successful attorney. She took a seat in the middle section and waited. Mira noticed her immediately. I saw her stumble slightly over her words, then recover and continue talking about the courage to let go of what no longer serves us. At 3 p.m., during the question and answer session, Elara stood up. "I have a question about authenticity," she said, her voice carrying easily through the room. Mira smiled, though it looked forced. "Of course. What's your question?" "How do you reconcile teaching people about authentic living when you've been conducting a secret affair with a married man for months?" The room went silent. I could hear the air conditioning humming. Mira's face went white. "I'm sorry, what?" "You heard me." Elara opened her portfolio and pulled out a tablet. "I have video evidence of you and my husband entering another man's house repeatedly while that man was at work. I have audio recordings of you planning your schedules around his absences. I have documentation of lies, deception, and betrayal spanning months." Someone in the front row gasped. "Ma'am, I think there's been a misunderstanding," Mira started. "There's no misunderstanding." Elara's voice was calm, professional, devastating. "My name is Elara Trenix. I'm a corporate attorney, and I'm married to Jace Arnell. You've been having an affair with him in Wes Farrow's house while Wes was at work and while your 13-year-old son was at school." The murmur that went through the crowd was like a wave. People were pulling out their phones, some to record, others to text. This was going to be all over social media within minutes. "This is completely inappropriate," Mira said, trying to regain control. "This is a wellness event, not a place for personal accusations." "You're right," Elara said. "It's a place for authentic living. So let's be authentic." She held up her tablet and pressed play. The audio was crystal clear. Mira and Jace discussing their schedules, talking about when I'd be at work, joking about how oblivious I was. "Turn that off," Mira demanded. "Why? I thought this was about living authentically." By now, the entire room was in chaos. Some people were recording everything on their phones. Others were gathering their things to leave. A few were actually taking notes, like this was the most educational part of the workshop. "Security," Mira called out. "There's no security," Elara said calmly. "This is a hotel conference room, not a fortress, and I paid my admission fee just like everyone else." She looked around the room, addressing the audience directly. "This woman has been teaching you about authentic relationships while lying to her husband, her child, and apparently all of you. She's been using her platform to talk about wellness while conducting an affair that's destroyed 2 families. That's enough." Mira stepped down from the stage, her composure completely gone. "Get out! Everyone get out!" But nobody moved. They were too fascinated by the drama unfolding in front of them. "I'm not done," Elara continued. "See, the thing about authenticity is that it requires honesty, and honesty means facing consequences. So let me tell you what those consequences are." She pulled out a folder from her portfolio. "Mira Farrow is being divorced by her husband for adultery. The evidence is comprehensive and undeniable. Jace Arnell was fired from his job yesterday when his employer learned about his lies and deception. And both of them are about to discover what happens when you make your private business public." Someone in the audience actually started clapping. Mira looked around the room, realizing that she'd lost complete control of the situation. "This is harassment. I'm calling the police." "Please do," Elara said. "I'm sure they'd be interested in the threatening text messages your boyfriend sent to my husband this week." That's when I decided to make my presence known. I stood up from my seat in the back row. Actually, I already called them about those. Every head in the room turned to look at me. Mira's face went through several expressions: shock, anger, humiliation, and finally something that might have been recognition that this was really happening. "Hello, sweetheart," I said. "Great workshop, very educational." "You planned this," she said. "I documented it. There's a difference." I walked down the aisle toward the front of the room, feeling 60 pairs of eyes on me. "Ladies, I'm Wes Farrow, the husband she's been cheating on. I just wanted you to know that everything Elara said is true. I have video evidence of my wife conducting an affair in our family home, around our 13-year-old son, with my former best friend." I pulled out my own phone and held it up. "I also have footage of them disabling our security system, lying about their whereabouts, and planning their activities around my work schedule, all time-stamped, all documented, all admissible in court." The room was completely silent now, except for the sound of phones recording everything. "But here's the thing about authentic living," I continued, looking directly at Mira. "Sometimes it means facing the truth about who you really are, and sometimes it means accepting the consequences of your choices." Mira was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. "You're humiliating me." "No," I said. "You humiliated yourself. I'm just making sure everyone knows about it. This will destroy me. You destroyed yourself when you decided to have an affair with my best friend in my house around my son. This is just the documentation." Elara closed her portfolio and stood up. "I think we've covered everything. Ladies, I hope you've learned something about authentic living today. Sometimes the most authentic thing you can do is expose lies." She walked toward the exit, then turned back. "Oh, and Mira? Your husband's attorney will be in touch about the custody arrangements. Given the evidence of your conduct around a minor child, I wouldn't expect primary custody." As people started filing out of the room, many of them were already posting on social media. I could see them typing, sharing, spreading the story across their networks. Mira's brand was built on social media. Now social media was going to destroy it. I walked over to where she was standing, still crying, still trying to process what had just happened. "Why?" she asked. "Why did you have to do it like this?" "Because you made it public when you brought it into our house. You made it public when you involved our son. You made it public when you built a brand on authenticity while living a lie. I never meant for it to happen this way. But it did happen this way, and now everyone knows." I left her standing there in the empty conference room and walked out into the lobby. Elara was waiting by the elevators. "How do you feel?" she asked. "Lighter," I said. "Like I've been carrying something heavy and I finally got to put it down." "Good, because we're not done yet." "What do you mean?" "That was the public humiliation. Now comes the personal reckoning." The elevator arrived and we stepped inside. "Jace has been calling me all morning," she continued. "He wants to meet, to work things out, to discuss this like adults." "Are you going to?" "Oh, yes. But not the way he expects." As the elevator doors closed, I realized that what had happened in that conference room was just the beginning. The public humiliation was over, but the private revenge was just getting started, and I was looking forward to every minute of it. Sunday morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. The video from Mira's wellness event had gone viral in our community's social media groups. Someone had posted it to the neighborhood Facebook page, where it had been shared dozens of times with comments ranging from supportive to savage. "I always knew something was off about her," wrote Mrs. Henderson from 3 streets over. "That poor man and his son," added someone I didn't recognize. "This is what happens when people think rules don't apply to them," contributed Mr. Driggs, our next-door neighbor. But the most telling comment came from Lacey, one of Mira's closest friends. "I tried to warn her this would end badly. Some people just don't listen." So even her inner circle had seen this coming. I made coffee and scrolled through the messages on my phone. Most were from people offering support or asking if I needed anything. A few were from reporters who'd somehow gotten my number. One was from my brother Tom, asking if I wanted him to keep Milo for another day. "Probably a good idea," I texted back. The most interesting message was from Elara. Jace wants to meet at noon, Riverside Park. You should come. I called her. Is that smart? Probably not, but I want witnesses, and I want him to understand that this isn't going away. What's your plan? To let him explain himself, and then to explain to him exactly what his life is going to look like from now on. Riverside Park was a 10-minute drive from my house, a sprawling area with walking trails, playgrounds, and picnic areas. On a Sunday afternoon, it would be busy with families, joggers, and dog walkers, public enough to prevent anything from getting out of hand, but open enough for a private conversation. I arrived early and found Elara sitting on a bench near the main pavilion. She was dressed casually, jeans, sweater, sunglasses, but still looked like someone you wouldn't want to cross. How are you holding up? I asked, sitting beside her. Better than I expected. I think I've been preparing for this conversation longer than I realized. What do you mean? Jace has always been entitled. Always believed he was smarter than everyone else, more deserving, above consequences. I've been making excuses for it for years. Such as? His job stress, his difficult childhood, his need for validation. I told myself I was being understanding when I was really being an enabler. At exactly noon, Jace appeared on the walking path, looking like he hadn't slept in days. His usually perfect hair was messy, his clothes wrinkled, his confident stride replaced by something more hesitant. He saw us and stopped, clearly not expecting me to be there. I thought we were meeting alone, he said to Elara. You thought wrong. She gestured to the space across from us. Sit. He remained standing. This is between us. No, I said. This involves all of us. You made it involve all of us when you decided to use my house for your affair. Jace looked around the park, probably calculating whether he could walk away without looking even more pathetic. He sat down on the bench across from us. I want to explain, he began. Explain what? Elara's voice was calm, but there was steel underneath. Explain how you've been lying to me for months? Explain how you gave yourself a key to another man's house? Explain how you conducted an affair around a 13-year-old child? It wasn't supposed to happen like this. How was it supposed to happen? I don't know. Different. Better. Better for whom? Jace ran his hands through his hair. I know you're angry. I'm not angry, Elara interrupted. Anger is what you feel when someone cuts you off in traffic. This is contempt. Elara, please, we can work through this. Work through what, exactly? Work through the fact that you've been systematically lying to me for months? Work through the fact that you lost your job because you're too arrogant to understand that actions have consequences? That wasn't my fault. Wes, don't. I cut him off. Don't try to blame me for the consequences of your choices. You destroyed my career over a personal matter. I documented your lies. Your employer made their own decision about what kind of person they wanted representing them. Jace turned back to Elara. You could have handled this privately. You didn't have to humiliate me in public. The way you handled your affair privately? That's different. How is it different? Because... He struggled for an answer. Because it just is. Elara stood up. Let me explain something to you, Jace. You seem to think this is a negotiation. You seem to think you can charm your way out of this, the way you've charmed your way out of everything else in your life. She walked over to stand directly in front of him. But here's what's actually going to happen. You're going to sign divorce papers without contest. You're going to agree to whatever custody arrangement I propose. You're going to liquidate your half of our assets and disappear from my life completely. You can't. I can. Because unlike you, I understand how the legal system works. And unlike you, I have evidence of your misconduct that will make any judge very unsympathetic to your position. What evidence? Elara pulled out her phone and showed him the screen. Video of you lying about your whereabouts. Audio of you planning deception. Documentation of you using another person's home for an extramarital affair. Text messages threatening your former best friend. Those texts weren't threats. A judge will decide that. Jace looked at me. We've been friends for 10 years. We were friends for 10 years. Past tense. One mistake. This wasn't one mistake. This was months of calculated deception. This was you using my house, manipulating my schedule, lying to my face, and involving my son in your lies. Milo doesn't know anything. Milo knows everything. Kids aren't stupid, Jace. They notice when adults are lying to them. He slumped forward, finally seeming to understand that this wasn't going to end the way he'd hoped. What do you want from me? Elara sat back down. I want you to understand that your actions have consequences. I want you to accept responsibility for destroying 2 marriages and a friendship. And I want you to disappear from our lives permanently. And if I don't, then the video evidence gets shared more widely. Then your former colleagues learn exactly why you were fired. Then every future employer who Googles your name finds out what kind of person you are. You're blackmailing me. I'm explaining your options. We sat in silence for several minutes, watching families play in the park around us. Normal people living normal lives, dealing with normal problems. Finally, Jace spoke. I never meant for it to go this far. But it did go this far, I said, and now you have to live with it. I'm sorry. Sorry you got caught, or sorry you did it? He didn't answer. Elara stood up again. You have until tomorrow morning to decide whether you're going to handle this cooperatively or whether we're going to make it more difficult for you. What about Mira? What about her? Are you going to destroy her too? I think yesterday's event accomplished that pretty effectively. Jace looked at both of us, seeming to realize for the first time that this wasn't going to be resolved with apologies and explanations. I'll sign whatever papers you want, he said quietly. Good. My attorney will be in touch. He stood up to leave, then turned back. For what it's worth, I really am sorry. It's not worth much, I said, but it's a start. After he left, Elara and I sat on the bench, watching the park empty out as afternoon turned to evening. How do you feel? I asked. Satisfied. Not happy exactly, but satisfied. What's next? For me? I finalize the divorce, rebuild my life, focus on my career. For you? Same, I guess, plus figuring out how to help Milo through all this. He'll be fine. Kids are more resilient than we think, especially when they have one parent who's honest with them. And Jace and Mira? They'll figure it out, or they won't. Either way, it's not our problem anymore. As we walked back to our cars, I realized that what had started as the worst period of my life was beginning to feel like liberation. The lies were exposed, the truth was public, and the people who had betrayed us were facing the consequences of their choices. It wasn't the ending I'd planned for my marriage, but it was an ending I could live with. And sometimes, that's the best you can hope for. 3 weeks later, on a Thursday evening that felt like the end of something, everything came to a head in the most dramatic way possible. I was at home with Milo, helping him with homework and trying to establish some kind of new normal, when my security system chimed with a motion alert. I checked my phone and saw Jace's car pulling into my driveway. Stay upstairs, I told Milo. Is that Uncle Jace? Yes, and he's not Uncle Jace anymore. I watched through the window as Jace got out of his car. Even from a distance, I could tell he'd been drinking. His movements were too deliberate, too careful, the way people move when they're trying to hide intoxication. He walked up to my front door and pounded on it with his fist. Open up, Wes, we need to talk. I activated the live stream function on my security cameras and shared the feed to the neighborhood app. If this was going to get ugly, I wanted witnesses. Go away, Jace. You're not welcome here. I'm not leaving until we settle this. There's nothing to settle. Sign your divorce papers and move on with your life. You destroyed everything. My job, my marriage, my reputation. You destroyed those things yourself. He pounded on the door again, harder this time. Let me in! I called 911, then texted Elara. Jace is at my house, drunk and angry. Police on the way. She responded immediately. On my way too. Through the window, I could see neighbors starting to emerge from their houses, drawn by the commotion. Mrs. Harper was on her front porch, phone in hand, probably recording everything. Mr. Driggs was in his yard, pretending to check his mail while obviously watching the drama unfold. I know you're in there, Jace shouted. Stop being a coward and face me. That's when I heard the sound of breaking glass. He'd thrown something, a rock, maybe, through my living room window. Now he was climbing through the opening, cutting himself on the remaining shards, but too drunk or angry to care. Jace, stop, I called out. You're trespassing. I don't care. I heard him stumbling around in my living room, knocking things over. Then his voice, closer now, coming from the bottom of the stairs. Where are you, Wes? Come down here and face me like a man. I checked my phone. The police were still 5 minutes away. Elara was 10 minutes away. I was on my own. Dad? Milo's voice came from behind me. Stay in your room and lock the door. Should I call Mom? No, just stay safe. I went downstairs to confront Jace, keeping my phone recording everything. He was standing in my living room, swaying slightly, surrounded by the debris from my broken window and the lamp he'd knocked over. There was a cut on his hand from the glass, dripping onto my carpet. There you are, he said when he saw me. Ready to talk now? You're bleeding on my floor. I don't care about your floor. What do you want, Jace? I want you to call off your lawyer. I want you to tell Elara to stop the divorce proceedings. I want you to fix what you broke. I didn't break anything. You broke everything. His voice was getting louder, more aggressive. We were fine until you started spying on us. You were fine. I was being lied to and betrayed. It wasn't supposed to affect you. It was my house, my wife, and my best friend. How was it not supposed to affect me? He took a step toward me, and I could smell the alcohol on his breath. You could have just ignored it. Ignored my wife having an affair in my house? It would have ended eventually. When? I don't know. When we figured things out. You mean when you got tired of her and moved on to someone else? That's not... He stopped, seeming to realize what he'd almost admitted. That's exactly what you mean. This wasn't love, Jace. This was convenience. You were using her the same way you were using me. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. You're a user. You take what you want from people and then act surprised when there are consequences. He lunged at me then, but he was drunk and clumsy. I sidestepped him easily, and he crashed into my coffee table. Stay down, I warned him. But he got up, angrier now, more reckless. You think you're better than me? I think I'm honest. You're pathetic. Mira told me how boring you are, how predictable, how she couldn't stand being married to you anymore. And yet she stayed married to me while having an affair with you. What does that say about you? That hit home. I could see it in his face, the realization that he'd been the side piece, not the main event. She was going to leave you, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. When? Soon. She told you that? Yes. The same way she told you she loved you. She does love me. She loves the attention. She loves the excitement of sneaking around. She loves having someone think she's special. But she doesn't love you, Jace. If she loved you, she would have left me months ago. He swung at me again, and this time I didn't dodge fast enough. His fist caught me in the shoulder, spinning me around, but he was off balance, and I was able to grab him and push him away. He stumbled backward and fell into the portable basketball hoop Milo had left by the door. The whole thing came down on top of him, and he ended up tangled in the net, looking ridiculous. That's when Mira's car pulled into the driveway. She came through the broken window the same way Jace had, except she was sober and angry instead of drunk and desperate. What is wrong with you two? She demanded, looking at Jace on the floor and me standing over him. Your boyfriend broke into my house, I said. He's not my boyfriend. Really? What is he then? She looked at Jace, who was trying to untangle himself from the basketball net. It's complicated. It's not complicated. You were having an affair with him. Now you're not. Now you're both dealing with the consequences. I never asked for any of this, she said. You asked for it the moment you gave him a key to my house. That was his idea. Jace finally managed to stand up. Don't blame this on me, Mira. You wanted this as much as I did. I wanted some excitement. I didn't want to destroy my life. Too late for that, I said. That's when the police arrived. Officer Martinez, the same cop who'd taken my statement about the threatening texts, came through the front door with her partner. Mr. Farrow, we got a call about a disturbance. He broke my window and entered my house without permission, I said, pointing at Jace. That true, sir? She asked Jace. He looked around the room, at the broken glass, the overturned furniture, the basketball hoop he'd knocked over. I was trying to have a conversation. By breaking and entering? It's not breaking and entering. These are my friends. I'm not your friend, I said, and you're not welcome in my house. Officer Martinez looked at Mira. And you are? His wife, soon-to-be ex-wife. Did you also enter through the window? Yes, but... Ma'am, that's still trespassing if the homeowner doesn't want you here. This is my house, too. Actually, I said, according to the temporary custody order, this is my house. Mira has supervised visitation rights only. Officer Martinez checked her notes. Mr. Farrow is correct. Ma'am, you'll need to leave. This is ridiculous. What's ridiculous is that you both thought you could break into my house and intimidate me into dropping the divorce proceedings. That's not what we were doing, Mira protested. Then what were you doing? She looked at Jace, who was now sitting on my couch holding a tissue to his bleeding hand. I don't know. That's when Elara arrived. She walked through the front door like she owned the place, took one look at the scene, broken glass, overturned furniture, Jace bleeding, Mira crying, police taking notes, and smiled. Well, she said, this is perfect. Perfect how? Officer Martinez asked. Perfect evidence for the restraining order I'm filing tomorrow. She pulled out her phone and began photographing everything, the shattered window, the overturned furniture, Jace's injured hand, and Mira's face streaked with smudged mascara. You can't use this against us, Jace protested. I can, and I will. Breaking and entering, destruction of property, harassment, intimidation. This is exactly the kind of behavior that justifies a permanent restraining order. Officer Martinez finished taking her notes. Mr. Arnell, you're under arrest for breaking and entering and destruction of property. This is insane, Jace said as she cuffed him. What's insane is that you thought you could break into someone's house and not face consequences. As they led Jace away, he turned back to Mira. Are you going to help me? She looked at him, really looked at him, for what seemed like the first time all evening. No, she said quietly. I don't think I am. After the police left with Jace, Mira stood in my living room looking lost. I should go, she said. Yes, you should. Can I see Milo first? No. Supervised visitation means supervised. You can see him this weekend with the court-appointed supervisor. She nodded and headed toward the window, then stopped. I'm sorry about all this. Which part? The affair, the lies, the broken window, or the fact that you brought your boyfriend here to intimidate me? All of it, I guess. Too late for sorry, Mira. She climbed back through the window and drove away. Elara and I stood in my living room, surveying the damage. Well, she said. That escalated quickly. Think it's over now? With Jace in jail and facing criminal charges, with Mira realizing she's on her own, with both of them understanding that their actions have real consequences? She smiled. Yes, I think it's over. Milo came downstairs, having heard the commotion end. Is everyone okay? He asked. Everyone's fine, I said. The bad guys are gone. Good. Can we order pizza? All that drama made me hungry. As we waited for the pizza to arrive, Elara helped me clean up the glass and right the overturned furniture. The broken window would need to be replaced, but everything else was fixable. You know what the best part of tonight was? She asked. What? Watching them realize that they're not the victims in this story. They're the perpetrators, and perpetrators don't get happy endings. What do they get? Consequences, which is exactly what they deserve. Later that evening, after Elara had gone home and Milo had gone to bed, I sat in my living room looking at the boarded-up window and thinking about everything that had happened over the past month. My marriage was over. My best friendship was destroyed. My house had been broken into. My son had been traumatized by adult drama he shouldn't have had to witness. But I was free. Free from lies. Free from deception. Free from people who thought they could use me without consequences. And that freedom was worth everything I'd lost. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Thank you. I called the number. A woman answered. This is going to sound strange, she said, but I was at your wife's wellness event last weekend. The video has been shared in several groups I'm in. Okay. My husband has been acting the same way yours was. Distant, secretive, working late. I thought I was being paranoid. And now? Now I'm installing cameras. After I hung up, I realized that what had started as personal revenge had become something larger. A cautionary tale. A warning to other people in similar situations. Sometimes the best thing you can do for someone is show them what consequences look like. And sometimes the best thing you can do for yourself is make sure those consequences are public, permanent, and complete. I turned off the lights and went upstairs to bed, feeling something I hadn't felt in months. Peace. The war was over, and I had won.